What's going on, y'all? In today's video, I'm going to be giving you not 5, not 10, but 12 board game gift ideas for the board gamer in your life. So let's start off with King of New York. So if you haven't seen my video, I'm going to go ahead and post a link in the description down below. King of New York is basically a monster versus monster board game where you're going to be fighting Godzilla and King Kong types, all to become the King of New York. You're going to be destroying buildings, destroying armies, a lot of destroying in this game. But it's a really fun kind of family game. And all these games that I'm going to be showing you are also under $50. So we have King of New York. We have Lanterns Dice, Lights in the Sky. So what this is called a roll and write game. We're going to be rolling dice, and then you're going to be writing down the outcome of those dice, basically. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create firework displays to impress the Emperor. So that is Lanterns Dice. Next we have Spectre Cube. Spectre Cube is kind of an off-the-map game. You don't hear a lot of talk about this, but it's basically a dice rolling game where you're playing with a lot of different colors. There's 15 primary and 15 secondary colors, and it has 6 games inside. So most of these games revolve around using the colors. There's a Yahtzee style game where you're trying to get 5 of a kind, 4 of a kind, full house, things like that. And but yeah, it's a really small, neat game, Spectre Cube. Next up, we have Magic Maze. Now, Magic Maze is a real-time game where you're thieves trying to get inside a mall, collect your goods, and leave before the timer runs out. Sounds like a very simple game, except one player controls the movement of every character going up. Another person controls the movement of every character going down, left, right. Another player controls the escalators. Sometimes one player controls left movement and escalator movement, and so you're all trying to communicate in this fury of, you know, let's go. And there's a little pawn that you can use to, so if you need to go left and everybody sees it, but the one person that can go left doesn't see it, you can take this pawn and kind of like tap in front of them to let them know, hey, you know, you need to do something. Now, if they don't see it, they can take the pawn and tap it back at you saying, hey, you need to do something. Now, there's no talking in this game. So that's what the pawn is for. You're tapping in front of one person and say, hey, we need to go left. They're tapping in front of another person saying, hey, you need to move the escalator. And everybody's, you're constantly tapping this pawn, and it can get real crazy. But this is a really fun family game also, Magic Maze. We also have Hot Shots. So Hot Shots is a firefighting game where you're all going to be playing as firefighters, of course. And you're going to be rolling dice, trying to get the best combinations to put out these fires. And you also have perks. So if there's more than one firefighter in a zone, you get an extra dice roll, or there's other perks where you can collect, where if you land on a certain dice and you don't need it, you can flip it over. But the game is Hot Shots. That's another really good gift idea. Next we have Pantone. Pantone is a color splash game. Again, if you haven't seen my video for this, I'm going to go ahead and post a link in the description down below. So Pantone is a color splotch game where you're going to be using these color splotches to create characters and have the players guess what character it is. You're going to be playing in 3 phases. First phase, you can use as many colors as you want. Second phase, you can use 3 colors. They can be all different or all the same. And the last phase, you can only use 1 of every color. You can use as many colors as you want, but only 1 of each color. And so that's Pantone. It's also a good game. It takes about maybe 25 or 30 minutes to play. Next game we have is Jaipur. Jaipur is a 2-player game where you're going to be buying and selling at a marketplace and trying to get the better of the goods than your opponent. So there's diamonds and salts and spices, and you're just trying to become the better trader and seller so that way you can be the Maharaja's personal trader. So that is Jaipur. Then we have Sagrada. What Sagrada is basically a dice drafting game where you're going to be collecting dice from a pool to try and build the better stained glass of the opponents. I like to compare it to Sudoku because there are certain rules to where, so if you draft a blue 6 and you put it in a row, so say you have this stained glass going and you put it in a row like this, now you can't have another 6 or another blue in that same row or next to it diagonally or on top of it. So there's a lot of strategy when trying to build your stained glass, but Sagrada is another one I recommend. Next up, we have Gravity Warfare. Gravity Warfare is an interesting game where players are trying to play their pieces on top of the platform without knocking them off. Now, usually the platform is steady when you play your pieces, so it makes it a little bit easier. But other players have sabotages that can mess up the other players playing their pieces. For instance, a player might have to play their pieces while the platform is spinning, or they might have to play their pieces while the platform is spinning and with chopsticks. So we can, stuff like that. There's also one where you would have to do it blindfolded or, of course, with your eyes closed. So Gravity Warfare is another interesting game that I would recommend. Then we have Dimension. Dimension is another off-the-wall, off-the-map game that you don't hear a lot about, where players are going to be racing against the sand timer to build pretty much a 3D pyramid made out of spheres. So we do this. Now it looks easy enough, but there's going to be special rules that you must comply with during the game. So you would have a deck of cards and you would throw down about 5 rules per round. So some of them might be black must be on top, or black cannot touch orange. Sometimes you might have 2 contradicting rules, like blacks must be on top and blacks must be on the bottom. So in that case, you would have to decide which one you want to lose points for. There's also rules like all orange must touch, or green and white must touch. So players are going to be racing against the sand timer, trying to do all of those rules, and the player who completes the most rules within a set number of rounds is the winner. So Dimension is another fun game I'd like to recommend. Then we have Favor of the Pharaoh, also known as To Court the King. So To Court the King is pretty much like the first edition, whereas Favor of the Pharaoh is like a remastered, streamlined edition. And if you do find To Court the King, it can be upwards of $100, whereas Favor of the Pharaoh is around $50 or sometimes less. So in Favor of the Pharaoh, it is a dice and tile collecting game where you're trying to build up your dice pool in order to roll 7 of a kind. So the way you do that is you're going to be starting off with usually about 3 dice. You roll them, and then you can say you get a pair, and there's a card that you can collect that says after you get a pair, you get to roll an extra die. And then so you can keep that, and then every time it's your turn, you can use that, working your way up to more powerful tiles. For instance, this one gives you 5 scarab tokens, which are these right here. When you get these scarab tokens, it helps you achieve higher levels of dice rolls. So for instance, this is, say you roll a 4 and you have these scarab tokens, well, this lets you add an extra pip, or the more you have, you can add multiple extra pips. This one right here lets you re-roll a die. So if you have a 4, you can add 2 pips to it to make it a 6, or you can use this and re-roll it to make it a 6. And again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get 7 of a kind to win the Favor of the Pharaoh. And last but not least, we have one of my favorites, Dice Throne. Now this is Dice Throne Season 2, which basically means different abilities and different characters. Season 1 is not available at the moment. I believe they are remaking it though. And also with Dice Throne, it comes in the second edition comes with these cool 2-player boxes. So each box you get can play up to 2 players. If you get all 4 boxes, you can play up to 6. It does take some time though. What Dice Throne is basically combat Yahtzee. So you're going to be rolling dice and trying to hit these different dice combos, like a small straight, a large straight, or there's special combos like one of each symbol, and you can perform certain combat options. And so you're fighting against each other, trying to be the best, pretty much. And there's also combat points, which you can use to purchase cards from your deck. So each player is going to get a deck of cards, and the common combat points let you purchase cards from that. For example, we have 6-It. Change the value of one of your dice to a 6. Now, you're probably wondering, well, okay, what's a 6 do? Well, a 6 in Dice Throne, it can unlock a lot of different abilities or let you do a lot of different combos and damage. For instance, if you look at the bottom here, you have an ultimate. Now what an ultimate is if all of your dice are 6, or if you roll all 6s, then you get to perform an ultimate. So what that is you do X amount of damage, usually more damage than any of the other abilities you can do. You get to receive, certain tokens that help you with other abilities later on. Also, an ultimate cannot be stopped unless you can change the value of their die. So if you do a 6-It and you're about to perform an ultimate and you say, is there any cards that you have that can alter my dice? And they do tip it, which increase or decrease any die by the value of 1. Then they can change your dice to less than an ultimate, and you have to try and find another ability to use. So that is Dice Throne, another one of the 12 that I recommend. If you enjoyed watching this video and you want to see more board game videos, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. We'll be posting more videos every week. Thanks for watching The Other Board Gamer.